Doctor Who, listen to this. During the break, it went completely. But I'm pleased to tell you that my next two guests are going to talk for me because that's what they've been doing for their whole lives. And, of course, partly on Doctor Who. And I've got here today Colin Baker, who was the 6th Doctor Who, and Katy Manning. Welcome. Now, listen, guys, first of all, has this ever happened to you?
No, I have to say I've been quite lucky. I mean, occasionally you get a sore voice, and in the theatre you find ways around it. You have to. But I lie. There was once I missed the final performance of a Christmas pantomime. It's just come into my brain. The very last Sunday I had no voice at all and I couldn't go on. And it's the only time I've ever been off, as we call it, in my professional career. But Katy can...
Yes.
Oh, no, listen, indestructible voice.
Listen.
But in actual fact, when it has happened to me, you know, I had an actor, anybody that couldn't quite hear what I was saying in the audience, you know, which is very, very rare, the actor would repeat it. She said, would you like a cup of tea? But it also got a voice right down here, and I remember I was doing Educating Rita, and my voice was somewhat like yours. And eventually, so I took it right down to my lowest register.
So right down
this
here.
poor actor said, it was like, that's it, that's the one.
So should I speak to
It was
you?
not working, but the crookie, you know, suddenly Rita suddenly got butcher and bigger and broader than the other actor, you know. So they had to wonder, you know, is that the man speaking or is that her? But actually, a lot of people would love mine to go. I do have to tell you. And Colin is, yes.
It's a word in edgeways. Really.
Exactly.
Sorry, I'll be very quiet now.
Well, actually, Katy, we'll start with you first.
Pardon?
I knew you'd do that. Oh, Katy. Tell us, you were before Colin on Doctor Who.
Oh, yes, I'm much older than Colin. You see, Colin was just a little boy at school when I was in Doctor Who.
How did it all come about for you that you landed the role?
In a nutshell, I was in the middle of doing another television series called Man at the Top, which was a John Brain series. It was sort of that groundbreaking television where suddenly women had curlers in their hair and, you know, went to the loo and things. So that was... And so I was very late for the auditions, and they'd seen sort of 500 people, and they'd shortlisted it by the time I got there with... funnily enough, I had something that sounded like kennel cough. So when the producers met me, and they also said, can you read the script? Well, I'm also terribly, terribly short-sighted. So I smelt the script and said no. And so they got me to improvise and so on. And one of the people that was on top of their list, right at the top of the list, was Shakira Kane, who was actually married to Michael Caine. And then they decided to go with the short-sighted midget with kennel cough, which was absolutely...
Wonderful.
And I was so surprised because it never dawned on me, and I was in there so late, that it never dawned on me that I might even get the job. I sort of went in, did it, and then went back to doing the other piece that I was doing in television, and it was just wonderful, wonderful, the most glorious 3 years that I shall treasure forever. Yes, I screamed for 3 years. Look out, Doctor, there's a big one. You know, we all had, but Doctor was another of my classics.
And Colin, John Pertwee?
John Pertwee,
was your
yes.
doctor. Yeah. So when did you come along?
Well, I was number 6. John Pertwee was number 3.
Oh, okay.
And after John Pertwee was Tom Baker, who played it for 7 years. And then there was Peter Davison, who did it for nearly 3 years, I think. And then I came along in Britain in 1983.
Were you the last doctor?
No, there was one more after me on television, which was Sylvester McCoy. Okay. And then there was the film that was made in America in 1989, I think, something like that. Maybe early 90s, with Paul McGann. But that was just a one-off. So officially, there is an 8th Doctor, but it wasn't a BBC Doctor.
Yes, it doesn't count.
Doesn't count, really.
No, they're not a BBC Doctor.
No,
It doesn't count.
Not to be a BBC Doctor.
Did you create your own doctor? I mean, or did you have to follow a certain way?
I was honoured to be asked by John Nathan Turner, who was a producer. He contacted me and said that he was thinking of offering me the part, and how would I like to play it. And I went along to meet him and the head of series at the BBC and said that I'd quite like it to be I mean, given the fact that this guy is supposed to be 900 years old, have 2 hearts, travel through time and space, I thought he may not be exactly like Suburban Man. So I wanted him to be a bit kind of spiky and unpredictable and maybe not likeable until you get to know him better. I always think the most interesting characters in fiction, Darcy in Pride and Prejudice, 90% of the book, you hate him.
Yeah.
The last 10%, you think, oh, that's what he's all about. What a hero. So I don't like spoon-feeding audiences.
No, I agree.
I love characters that are spiky and difficult to get hold of. And I don't like everything to be spelt out for me. I don't want to know everything about everyone. If you know all there is to know in the first scene, where have you got to go?
Yes.
So I wanted to hang some question marks in the air, which is very appropriate for the Doctor.
Very good, very good.
And they liked that. The only thing I didn't have any input on was the costume, which I always hated.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, tell us
likewise.
about what was it like?
Multicoloured. It was
yes.
kind of like a walking tartan with yellow striped trousers, and it was... The only advantage is like living in an ugly house, at least you don't have to look at it, and all your neighbours do. So I was the only person inside the costume looking out, everyone else had to look at it.
Listen, yours was better than mine. I have to tell you, mine were the greatest threat to any alien invasion. One look at the frocks I had to wear, and they would have been out of there like that. I mean, they had me climbing mountains in 7-inch platforms and a miniskirt. Hello? You know, the weirdest...
Well, that was the 40s for you.
That's right, well, I remember it well.
1940s.
It's the tuck roll there.
Were you black and white? Or,
Sorry?
or had it gone to colour by then?
No, I have gone to colour. I was in colour.
She was sepia.
Yes. They've actually lost a lot of the colour prints of the early Doctor Who's that I did. So they now are actually going out only in black and white.
Oh, really?
Which makes people think that I'm terribly, terribly old as opposed to just terribly old.
Were there things that went wrong when you were filming?
Oh.
You know, lots where the TARDIS fell over, or the Dalek
Well,
went
I used
the
to
wrong
love
way.
the greatest threat to the universe. I'm sure Colin has a million. But the greatest threat to one of the greatest threats to the universe was a thing called a sea monster. I mean, every episode, because things were so sort of quickly put together, and that was part of the magic of Doctor Who. But these sea monsters would go into this sort of English Channel, and they slowly, they would disintegrate, and there would be a floating head and a floating flipper, and these poor stuntmen in freezing cold water with bits of their bodies floating. John and I going, you know, you've just saved the world, Doctor. I mean, it's stuff like that, and, you know, every door you touch kind of goes
Yes.
like, I mean,
And of course, the monsters could never see where they were going.
No.
You're stuck inside. The poor old Cybermen, they can barely move in those things. All you have to do is walk slowly sideways and you're safe, really. And Daleks that can't go upstairs, you've got casters, you know, like you have on an armchair on the bottom.
Yes.
So all you have to do is move into a brisk trot and go upstairs and you're safe. But fortunately, the audience suspends its disbelief and...
A lot of acting has to go on, though, to make sure that...
And also, you do find you do 15 takes until the special effects or the monster gets in the right place at the right time. Irrespective of whether you've done a ricket or not of your performance, that's the one they print.
That's exactly
Because
right.
the explosion happened, the Dalek arrived there on time, a bit didn't fall off it.
And the smoke looked good.
Yes.
The special effects have come a long way.
Yeah, and
Even
most
from
of those...
Doctor Who, watching it all the
Most of
way
those
through.
Doctor Who guys moved on and are now the special effects people on the big movies. Special effects, even though we now look back and kind of slightly deride the special effects in Doctor Who, those guys were working on a shoestring budget with no technology behind them. They invented the technology that is now being used to devastating effect with digital stuff you can do now in scanning and
electronic music. That was the first time they actually used that kind of
all
music.
that came from the BBC
And costume
sound and special
designers,
effect department, yeah.
like Jim Atchison, who won the Oscar for The Littlest Emperor. You know, did all those... And in those days, the makeup ladies used to do a lot of the masks, and then it went into the special effects boys in my dime. But so it really has. They were the forerunners to the things that we...
So in hindsight, it does look a bit ropey. But at the time, they were groundbreaking.